Samantha Phillips was born and raised in the bustling community of Chula Vista, California, a suburb of San Diego. Her parents, Steve and Andrea Phillips, are well-known and well-established members of the local community. Steve and Andrea run a small clinic where they work as pediatricians. Samantha, the youngest of their three children, grew up in a happy, loving home. Her parents, along with her older sisters Annie and Kathy, doted on her, and she always seemed to have a smile on her face. In school, Samantha was an outstanding student who excelled at everything she did. Popular and outgoing, she had many friends and participated in various extracurricular activities, ranging from science club to cheerleading. From her earliest years, Samantha always dreamed of becoming a teacher. Her love of children, combined with a passion for helping others, made the choice of profession easy for her. Samantha pursued her dream by attending San Diego State University, where she majored in education, graduating with honors in 2010. After college, Samantha returned back to her hometown, where she got a job as a teacher in a local elementary school. Despite the long hours and challenging workload, Samantha excelled in her new position. She taught first and second graders, and her dedication to her students was unmatched. She frequently remained after hours to tutor them and was always available to assist her students with anything that they might need. Widely admired by her colleagues and students alike, Samantha soon became popular with parents as well, who frequently requested her as their children's teacher. Yet, while her career had taken off, Samantha was missing one thing in her life: a loving relationship. Samantha's friends, who always described her as warm, compassionate, and always ready to lend a helping hand, said that besides her teaching career, her greatest passion was to one day meet the man of her dreams, get married, and raise a family. All of that changed on February 7, 2014, when Samantha met Brad Westerman. Westerman was a police officer with the local Chula Vista Police Department. He had come to Samantha's class that day to give a presentation as part of the school's annual career day. Handsome and charismatic, Brad exuded a natural charm that drew Samantha in. The attraction was immediate, and soon the two began dating. Samantha fell hard for Brad, and with a career and now a new man in her life, all of her dreams seemed to be coming true. Yet all of those hopes and dreams came to a crashing end on the evening of October 24, 2015, when the lifeless body of Samantha Phillips, age 27, was found lying in a pool of blood in her apartment. She had been brutally murdered, with 6 gunshot wounds to her head and body. The main suspect in this tragedy was identified as Brad Westerman, a 29-year-old police officer with the Chula Vista Police Department. How the relationship between Samantha and Brad went from idyllic to tragic is a complex and chilling tale of abuse, manipulation, and escalating control that eventually resulted in paranoia, obsession, and murder. In the weeks that followed their first meeting, Samantha and Brad's relationship blossomed swiftly. They enjoyed dinners and movies together, while they engaged in deep conversations, sharing their dreams and hopes for the future. Samantha thought that Brad was a perfect match for her. He was attractive, warm, engaging, and funny, and always seemed to be attentive to her needs. Yet, even in those early days of their romance, subtle hints of Brad's jealous and possessive nature began to emerge. Samantha's sisters Annie and Kathy, who had always been close to their youngest sister, began to notice Brad's tendency to monopolize Samantha's time. And while they initially wrote this behavior off as the two being in the throes of young love, as time went on, Brad only seemed to increase his control over Samantha's interactions with family and friends. As their relationship progressed, Brad gradually tightened his grip over Samantha. He would call her frequently and drop by her apartment or work unannounced. He began to dictate aspects of her daily routine and exercise control over her social engagements. Colleagues at Samantha's school noticed changes in her behavior at work. She became less and less available to tutor her students after class and began declining social invitations with her friends and colleagues after work. In time, Brad's efforts to isolate Samantha gradually extended to her family, prompting concerns among her loved ones. Annie Phillips recalled a troubling incident during the 2014 holidays when Samantha abruptly canceled attending the family's annual Christmas family gathering, citing Brad's disapproval. Yet, despite mounting evidence of Brad's controlling behavior, Samantha remained firmly devoted to their relationship. She deflected the concerns raised by friends and family about Brad's behavior, saying that in spite of his eccentricities, Brad was a good man and she was convinced that he was her soulmate. But as 2014 turned into 2015, Brad's actions only grew more erratic. He became increasingly paranoid, falsely accusing Samantha of cheating on him. By the fall of 2015, the strain on their relationship became evident and as Brad's paranoia and need for control intensified, he would make a fateful decision that would lead to murder. To most observers, Brad Westerman seemed to be an unlikely candidate for a murderer. Born in 1986 in nearby Santee, Brad grew up in a working-class family with two older brothers. The Westermans were a rough-and-tumble bunch who enjoyed sports, hunting, and practical jokes. Growing up, Brad, the youngest of the family, was described as sensitive and shy. From a young age, those close to the family noticed Brad's intense craving for love and affection. This pattern continued into Brad's teenage years, as revealed by his former high school girlfriend, Ellen Clark. Ellen recalled Brad's possessiveness and jealousy, and his constant need to monitor her whereabouts. Yet despite his insecurities, Brad proved to be an excellent student and a talented athlete. A member of his high school's football and track teams, he graduated as valedictorian of his high school class and enrolled at nearby Grossmont College, eventually earning a degree in criminal justice. Following his graduation, Brad entered the local police academy, where instructors and colleagues praised his dedication and determination to succeed. Soon after finishing the police academy, Brad joined the police department in Chula Vista. However, as his career progressed, Brad's romantic relationships remained unstable, marked by brief and intense encounters. Janelle Anderson, who dated Brad briefly in 2010, described their relationship as suffocating and demanding, highlighting Brad's need for control and validation. By the time Brad met Samantha Phillips in early 2014, he had left behind a trail of broken relationships. The collision of Brad Westerman's turbulent past and Samantha Phillips' steady character ultimately resulted in a tragic event that shook the community and left authorities grappling with the complexities of human behavior and the terrible consequences of obsession and control. In late September 2015, while Samantha was away at a weekend teacher's retreat, Brad made a fateful decision. His paranoia and possessiveness had grown to the point where he no longer trusted Samantha, and his increasing suspicions about Samantha's loyalty caused him to take drastic actions. Entering her apartment with a key that she had provided to him, he installed small hidden cameras and listening devices in every room of her apartment, in the living room, kitchen, bedroom, and even the bathroom, making sure that every part of Samantha's private space was under surveillance. He then set up the camera and audio feeds so that they would stream directly into his phone or laptop computer. In the first few days of watching Samantha, Brad didn't notice anything suspicious. Samantha appeared just to be doing normal things like grading papers, preparing lessons, watching TV, and talking on the phone with her friend and family. But instead of calming his fears, this made Brad even more suspicious. He became convinced that in spite of all appearances, Samantha was unfaithful to him and their relationship, and he was determined to uncover her infidelity. As the weeks went by, Brad became even more obsessed with watching the camera feeds. His behavior, even more upsetting than usual, began to get Samantha's attention. He seemed increasingly distracted and paranoid, and argued even more with Samantha over little things. Samantha began to wonder, what's going on with him? Meanwhile, Samantha felt a growing sense of unease in her apartment. Sometimes she felt like someone was watching her, especially when she was alone. Yet despite trying to find logical reasons for her discomfort, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Samantha's friend Julie Canton later recalled a conversation with Samantha in which she talked about feeling uncomfortable at home. She remembered Samantha saying how she always felt uneasy and on edge in her apartment, but Julie only thought at the time that her friend was overreacting. But also adding to Samantha's feeling of unease was Brad's increasingly strange behavior. He would mention things about her day that he could not have known, like angrily asking about a phone call she received that she had not mentioned to him. But when Samantha asked Brad about this, he would quickly change the subject or give vague answers. The moment that Samantha finally realized what was really going on came one evening in early October 2015. She had stayed up late to grade papers and prepare lesson plans for her students for the following day when she leaned over to turn off the lamp in her living room to go to bed. As she reached for the lamp, she accidentally knocked it off the table. As Samantha knelt down to pick up the lamp off the floor, she noticed something strange flashing along its base. As she carefully picked up the lamp to examine it more closely, she found a tiny miniature camera with tiny lens no bigger than the point of a pencil. Over the next hour, she found 3 more cameras hidden throughout her apartment, in the smoke detector, on the dresser in her bedroom, even in a towel rack in her bathroom. Shocked to her core, Samantha started thinking about when her discomfort began. She remembered Brad's odd comments, his unexplained knowledge of some of her daily activities, and when the unsettling feeling of always being watched started. Then she remembered how she had given Brad a key to her apartment before she had left for her teaching retreat in response to Brad's repeated and insistent requests, so that he could presumably look after the plants on her patio. Her feeling of unease began after she returned from the retreat. With this realization, Samantha had pieced everything together. Brad had been spying on her. And yet, despite this realization, Samantha felt torn. Part of her felt numb with betrayal. She wanted to confront Brad immediately, demanding answers. Another part of her struggled to reconcile the man she loved with someone who would be capable of such a gross breach of privacy. Despite Brad's jealousy and possessiveness, how could he do such a thing? Her logical mind simply could not grasp that possibility. And yet still another part of her wanted to call the police to report the intrusion. Yet how could she do so safely when her boyfriend was a cop himself? As Samantha grappled with her decision, her phone buzzed with a message from Brad, ironically wishing her a good evening. Taking a deep breath, she replied, setting in motion the final tragic chapter of their relationship. "We need to talk. Come over tomorrow night." When Brad arrived the following evening, chills went up his spine as soon as he caught sight of Samantha. Her usually cheerful and compliant demeanor had changed, and the serious expression on her face said it all. Without a word, she pointed to her dining room table, where she had placed the hidden cameras that she had found in her apartment. "Tell me, Brad," she said in a low but somber tone, "why did you do this? Why did you spy on me like this? I loved you and trusted you, and this is what you do to me. Why?" At first, Brad denied everything. But Samantha would not yield. She knew the truth and spoke of how he had betrayed her trust and violated her privacy. "I know that it must have been you, Brad. We're through. Get out." For a moment, a sad silence hung in the air. Then he began to plead with her, begging for her forgiveness as his tears poured forth. He tried to explain his actions by telling her about his love for her and his insecurities and fears of losing her. But amidst all of the tears and pleading, Samantha would hear none of it. She had made her decision and remained unmoved. Finally realizing that his pleas were useless, Brad finally left, his head hanging low and his shoulders hunched as he quietly exited the apartment. Emotionally drained by the encounter, Samantha burst into tears and sank deep into her couch. Though devastated by the betrayal, she knew that she had done the right thing. As the weeks passed, Samantha resumed her usual routine. Though her heart ached from her breakup with Brad, she told friends and family that she knew that she had made the right decision, the only possible decision for her, and that she believed that the worst was now behind her. She was at peace, and despite being urged by her friend and family to report the violation to the police, Samantha refused, saying that she only wanted to end her relationship with Brad, not to ruin his life and career. Little did she know that Brad's desperation and paranoia was only increasing and was about to take a deadly turn. Saturday, October 24th, 2015, started like any other day in Chula Vista, with no hint of the tragedy that was about to come. Several weeks had passed without incident since her confrontation with Brad, leading Samantha to believe that the worst was in fact now behind her. And as she began to heal from the breakup, Samantha also begun to recover from the oppressive control that Brad had imposed upon her. That Saturday, for the first time in many months, she visited friends, dining with them that evening at a local restaurant. It was during this absence that Brad took the opportunity to enter Samantha's apartment for one final, fateful visit. At the same time that Samantha was healing from the breakup, Brad was stewing over his loss. While he was filled with remorse and self-hate for what he had done, Brad also blamed Samantha for the breakup. His feelings of jealousy and rage welled up within him to create a dangerous mix of desperation and righteous anger. Neighbors later reported seeing Brad at Samantha's apartment complex early on the morning of the murder. Though he did not confront Samantha at that time, he apparently was staking her out, waiting for an opportunity to enter her apartment. His opportunity came when Samantha left around 4 p.m. to join her friends. Using the key that Samantha had given him, Brad let himself in. When Samantha returned home around 9 p.m., to her shock and dismay, she found Brad waiting for her, seated on her couch in the darkened living room. His presence startled her, and she asked why he was there. Brad replied that they needed to talk. Calmly but firmly, he told her that they were meant to be together and insisted that they could fix things. Frightened and exhausted, Samantha said that there was nothing left to fix and that their relationship was over. She demanded that he leave immediately. But Brad continued to profess his love for her and insist that they were meant to be together forever and that if I can't have you, then nobody can. What followed was a blur of violence and terror. Samantha, caught off guard, tried to reason, then began to plead with him to leave. But Brad would not listen. Calmly, he pulled out his police service revolver and shot Samantha 6 times. Neighbors who heard the shots immediately called 911. But by the time police and paramedics arrived on the scene, it was too late. Samantha was dead. Brad was found holding her body in his arms with a blank expression on his face, his clothes covered with blood. He was taken into custody without incident, and when questioned, simply replied over and over, "I love you forever, Samantha." On January 19, 2016, the trial of Brad Westerman for the murder of Samantha Phillips got underway at the San Diego County Courthouse in downtown San Diego. Prosecutors charged Brad with first-degree murder, arguing that Brad's actions had been premeditated, as he had brought his gun with him and had been lying in wait for Samantha in her apartment. The defense argued that Brad should be found not guilty by reason of insanity, citing his unstable mental history and his frequently stated intention to fix things with Samantha prior to the murder. The trial showcased Brad's obsessive behavior, with both sides bringing in experts to testify as to Brad's mental state, with conflicting conclusions given. On January 28, 2016, after deliberating for almost 3 days, the jury found Brad Westerman guilty of second-degree murder. In their deliberations, while they rejected the defense's contention that he was not guilty by reason of insanity, the jury concluded that Brad's shooting of Samantha had not been premeditated but was a crime of passion instead. He was sentenced to serve 15 years to life and is currently serving out his term at the California Institution for Men in San Bernardino. As the community of Chula Vista recovered from the brutal murder of Samantha Phillips and its painful aftermath, her family, friends, and colleagues were left to reflect on the tragic events of that day in October and whether they could have done anything differently to prevent it. And as they struggled to heal, everyone affected realized the importance of recognizing and addressing toxic relationships before they turn deadly. The twisted obsession that led to Samantha's murder had been unraveled, and justice had ultimately been served. But the case serves as a sobering reminder of the complexities and the fragility of love, trust, and the human spirit.